And for that, we have what we call the joint tool. The joint tool will do exactly that. It's gonna create a is a more automatically way of creating parented objects that will serve to create things like arms, tentacles, or any other thing that you can think of. If there's different types of connections, you can use a joint. So let me explain how you use the joint tool. It's very easy. If we have here, I'm gonna click the joint tool, and here on the side tool, if I click here one, I'm gonna create one joint. Then I click here, I create a second joint, and you're gonna see the two joints are connected by a bone. And then I can create another one here and another one here. So we can take a look what we created here in the 3D view. What is nice about this, I already have my whole hierarchy. As I created this, I can see here in the outliner, each joint is automatically the parent of the other joint. So if I move the first one, I'm gonna move everything. And most important, if I rotate here, I'm gonna rotate only one. But if I select the second one, I rotate only the children, but not the parent. And same thing here. So in this case would be a leg. So we have here the thigh, and we have the knee, and it's connected to the tibia, and then we have the feet. So this is a very quick and efficient way to create this kind of hierarchy. How can you apply this to a character? You apply to a character using the bind command and then the skinning to control the deformation. So let me show you how you do that. So let's delete this. First, we need a object to deform. So let's go to the polymodeling and let's create a cylinder. So, but let's change the cylinder a little bit. We're gonna press T so we get our gizmo with the main attributes of the cylinder. So let's make this much taller. So we don't need so many subdivisions in the axis. Let's make this much less so it's clearer for us. Like 8 is good. We need more subdivisions in the height. We're gonna put 6 is good. It's good to have this center one because we're gonna use this kind of a elbow or a knee, and we're gonna have the caps here. That's fine. Let's go here and move this up a little bit. And here on the side view, I'm gonna create some joints to deform this. So I'm gonna go to my rigging. We're gonna go to my rigging shelf. Then I'm gonna click on the joint tool. And to be clear what I'm doing, let's click on the wireframe on shaded. And on shading, we're gonna click X-ray joint so we can see the joint even when it's inside the object. So I'm gonna click here, and I'm gonna click here, and I'm gonna click here. So I have the joint. The joint's a little bit thicker, but keep in mind the thickness of the joint is irrelevant. It does not affect what you're doing. You can actually change how thick or not this is, just going to display, animation, and joint size, and we can make this bigger, smaller, or bigger. It doesn't really matter. You change this just to make your life easier as you visualize here. So as I created this, let's make wireframe on shaded and X-ray joints. Same, I'm gonna put X-ray joints in all of the viewports. So when you create a joint, Maya is intelligent enough to center the joints around the 3D object you have, so they are in the middle of it, even if they are not in the center like I created here. So we are going to use this hierarchy here to deform this geometry here. So as I rotate the joint, this object is going to be affected by that. So how can I do that? You do that selecting your parent or any of the joints in the hierarchy, and then you shift select the object, then you go to skin and bind skin, click first the options, and let's select some options here. We have to select if we're gonna bind to the selected joints or the object hierarchy or the joint hierarchy. It's usually the joint hierarchy because then you are gonna bind to the whole hierarchies. There are cases where you wanna bind to just one joint. In that case, you're gonna use the selected joint. But now I want joint hierarchy. The bind method is the method we're going to be using to have a good deformation. The closest in hierarchy and closest in distance, they are here for legacy reasons. There's never a good reason to use that anymore. The heat map and the geodesic voxel are the most modern ones, and they both work pretty well. But the geodesic voxel works even better than heat map. The advantage of heat map it's a little bit faster and you can use with some less perfect meshes, but most of the time the geodesic voxel is what you want to use. And then we have the skinning method, the normalized weight method, the skinning method first, classic linear, dual continuum, or weight blended. This gets a little bit more technical, but let's use dual continuum now. I'll explain the difference later. And this looks fine. Let's change this to 5. And resolution, we can use less. So to make this joint hierarchy to deform the object, we need to select the hierarchy, and then we shift select the object. Then we go to skin, bind skin, options. Let's reset the settings here and see what we have. By default, you're gonna be binding the joint hierarchy. Sometimes you want to use just the joint to select it, but in this case we do want the whole hierarchy. The bind method, we're going to use geodesic voxel, which is the best one. The skinning method, I'm going to use dual continuum. Don't worry about it, I'm going to talk more about this later. And everything seems nice, and I'm going to press apply. I'm going to read a little bit. Okay, so let's see what happens now. Now, if I rotate this, look what happens. We have a nice deformation of our cylinder. And if I click the cylinder and I press 3 to get the more organic look of the smooth preview, now we have this even nicer deformation here. So this is pretty much how you create the deformations of the limbs of the different characters that we're going to be creating. You can control the deformation here first with the different options. We have the bind skin. Later I'm going to talk about this. But you can paint the influence of each joint in each part of your mesh. For that we have the weight paint tool, and that's what we're gonna be talking now. So before we start using the weight painting tool, let's change something in our rig here. The way we have so far, if I want to rotate here, I have to come to my joint, and then I have to manually rotate here. And if I want to rotate everything, I have to rotate here. So if I want to reach here, I rotate this one, and then I go and rotate this one to get in this position. This is what we call forward kinematic. But if we want to have a more dynamic way of controlling, like if I want to just move this point here so both joints move, this is what we call IK, inverse kinematics. To create an IK system here, I have to click on the joint here in the hierarchy, and I click this IK handle, create IK handle tool. I click once. He's gonna ask for me to select the one that's gonna be the start joint for the handle, and then I connect to the other one. Boom. Now if I move this, looks what happened. Now I can just move this and I can deform here. This is a inverse kinematic system, so this is nicer for us to play with the deformation. So I'm gonna put the joint here so we can see clearly the deformation, and now let's play with the paint weight tool. So the paint weight tool is this tool here. I'm gonna select the mesh and I'm gonna click on the tool. We're gonna see the color changes. We have this crazy thing going on here. To understand what is happening, we actually have to click twice in the tool, and we can see the tool we're using here beneath the main tools here on the left. So click twice here, and you're gonna get the tool in the tools menu here. So what happens here? We have the two joints in our hierarchy here. If I select the other joint, I see the color changes. So basically, the white represents 100% influence of the joint in those faces. Black represents 0 influence, so there's no influence. Anything between, the gradient, the gray between both represents different values between 0 and 100%. And you see, as I hover over, I have kind of a brush. If I press B, I can click and drag and make this bigger or smaller. This is because, as the name implies, I can literally paint here. I can paint or subtract influences. So for example, I can select different brushes here. In this case, I'm in the replace mode. The value is 1, so I can actually put more values here. So let's see what happens. As I paint here, the force of this joint gets stronger, so we get a bigger gap because this joint is making those faces move in that direction. And we can do the same here. So now we can do the opposite. We're gonna paint more of this joint here, so we have more influence here. And we can use a smooth tool. So we're gonna make this more smooth, the transition between both. So you can do a lot of stuff here. We can put, like, for example, the replace and the opacity to 0. And then as you paint, we would be, not opacity, sorry, the value, we could put this at 0. And then as you paint, this will delete the influences. It's gonna get less and less. So you're basically, It basically works as an eraser of the influence of that joint. So this is the way you can refine what we got with our initial skin command. But usually the Maya bind skin is getting better and better each version, so we still need to refine using the weight tool, but it's not as bad as it used to be before. Keep in mind, as this is a paint tool, you need a Wacom. It's almost impossible to paint weights correctly with the mouse. I'm not being annoying just for sake of being annoying when I tell you you should buy a Wacom to use with Maya. A lot of the tools we use in Maya, they were optimized for Wacom, such as the whole marking menu system. It's much easier, makes much more sense if you're using a pen. But likewise, stuff like the weight painting tool, it was definitely made for a Wacom tablet. So this is the weight painting tool. Now I think we're prepared to start rigging our character, and that's what we're going to start doing. And don't worry, because even though we talked about the joint tool here, for the character we're going to use a more advanced system that's going to create a whole skeleton for us, which is this system here, the Human IK system. That's the topic of the next video.